Dear students, welcome to my classroom of research methodology in history. Today I am going to teach you generalization. What does it mean? Generalization is something which is very much subjective. It is also helpful for us to do something with critical thinking. Generalization is a very much part of critical thinking or helps us to have brainstorming sessions. Generalization is a concept which the historians they used to apply to understand the various avenues related to historiography. So it's a part of historiography and it's the essence of history. What is generalization? Before knowing generalization, it's very important what I feel that students they should link the various facets of intellectual history so that they would be able to understand that why this lecture is significant. If I start with the concept of history, what is history? There is a book by E.H. Carr with the same title. History means continuity. History is like a river or a water body which is having continuous flow. When we talk history, it's also important for us to know history. What is history? Which texts can be termed or regarded as the historical texts? For that reason, we always prefer to have some methods, some formulas, some theories. All these methods, formulas and theories, they make history scientific. What J.B. Bury once stated, history is also a science. So when we talk on generalization, argumentation, hypothesis, all these concepts are very much scientific, analytical and subjective as well. So here we find a fine blend of subjectivity and objectivity when we talk on generalization. So I hope students they got an idea on history. Now the point is, what is research methodology? You are having this course on research methodology, so you should know the meaning of research as well as methodology. Research is something through which we would like to decipher the unknown truths. So it's something where also we are working on the ultimate truth or priori. Through researches, we benefit the society. It's an initiative for seeking truth. When we talk on scientific research, that means we are talking inventions, discoveries. When we talk on the researches related to society, I'm talking about the social science researches through which we always try to decipher or decode the minds or what the human beings they think, their thought process. Here we have certain formulas as well which can be known as the philosophy of history. You know, philosophy is the mother of all the subjects or disciplines. So, history is also having a philosophy. And in that philosophy, we are dealing with or we are playing with certain concepts. Generalization is amongst them. If we talk generalization, then what Mark Bloch once stated, according to him, through generalization we trade history. That means through generalization we try to make historiography more meaningful. So it is an instrument or a tool which helps the historians to have subjective analysis of the facts with scientific mind, which is pivotal for writing history. And history writing is known as the art of history writing or historiography. I am repeating, the art of writing history is known as historiography, and through generalization we are trying to decode historiography. There are certain components of generalization which I am going to discuss in this lecture. As I have already given my introduction, that where I have tried to link the concepts history, research methodology, philosophy of history, generalization and all. Then the second point is, what is generalization? Here I must say it's not that much easy for us to define generalization. It's a method through which the historians, they try to apply certain formulas, and through those formulas they want to have a common conclusion. I must say that if I give you one example of generalization, then it would be war. I am talking about war, W-A-R. War is very much disturbing because it brings bloodshed and violence. So this is a generalized concept because in the pages of history we have seen the wars, and all those wars were very much disturbing. We talk revolution. Revolution has both positive and negative aspects. Revolution can change the society. Revolution can make people aware of their rights. On the other hand, revolution cannot be successful without bloodshed or violence. So this is something, a general idea on wars, or when we try to interpret the history of wars, we go for generalization. The next point is inevitability of generalization, that whether generalization is inevitable or not. Can we write history without generalizing the ideas? Is it possible? We can try to know that also. The next point is objections to generalization, that we need to think out of the box also. As I have already given you the example of wars, the history of war, which is very much unpleasant. But if we can think out of the box as well, then we might say that wars were inevitable in history because they brought changes. Revolution was important because revolution or revolutions in the civilizations which we witnessed brought transformations that helped the social thinkers to theorize the presence of humans in this world, how we can situate ourselves in this world where psychosocial analysis is very much important. So this is something where we are not following the established norms or the generalized ideas. That we need to check as well. Role of generalization, that as Mark Bloch stated, that how we trade history. So from that perspective, role of generalization is also important. Sometimes we need to have certain common ideas as well so that we could improvise our theorization. Sources of generalization. Here also we can say that this entire topic is subjective. Whatever the references and the information you will get in my academic script and PPT, definitely those will help you to have a broader understanding of the topic. But what I am saying to you, perhaps the reflection of my understanding of generalization, because I believe that understanding of the concepts is important in that way if you are having a subjective analysis, and here all of us are having individualistic ideas or individualistic ontological stance. How to improve one's capacity to generalize? That means how we can be more intellectual to understand generalization. And lastly, my conclusion, where I want my students to respond, which they can do while they can communicate with me through mails so that we can continue this discourse. I have already discussed about the introduction part, like how can we explain generalization. So, if I would like to quote from the texts, then I must say generalization is involved as soon as we perform the two most elementary tasks: classify facts or data or phenomena and compare and contrast them, or seek out similarities and dissimilarities among them and make any inference from them. So it is something how you are analyzing a particular topic. And when you are analyzing that particular topic, definitely you are utilizing your critical thinking and subjective mind. But historians are not like the writers who write novels and poems or fictitious stories. They perform the duty of the reporters or the documentary makers. So in that case, what we understand that they should have a pragmatic approach towards their study or research. And in that case, they have to make a comparative study between the past and the present to get some ideas or formulas which they can also apply later for a broader understanding. The lessons which we learned from the French Revolution also help us to situate the other revolutions and to estimate their significance. If I give you the example of the French Revolution, from where we got three principles: equality, fraternity, and freedom. Because these were the principles which had been preached by the philosophers and followed by the people to bring this French Revolution. If we try to understand the freedom movement in India, definitely we can make a comparative study between the French Revolution and India's freedom struggle. And we can try to find out that whether these three principles of equality, fraternity, and freedom were being followed or adopted in our Indian context or not. That is called generalization. So, this topic is very much subjective and also interesting and scientific. And now we can have various levels of generalization. I am not going into detail of these levels because all are in my academic script. But I think students, they should get an idea about it so that later on they could nourish or they could cultivate the same. So if we talk on the lower level of generalization, that is something which is the basic understanding of the fact. The fact might be a fact which is related to the society, which can be related to the economy or anything else. Fact has various forms. It can be a social fact, a cultural fact, an economic fact. So the basic understanding when we are first interacting with that fact can be termed as our study of generalization at the low level. What is the middle level? A middle level generalization is made when a historian tries to find interconnections among the different elements of the subject. That means in the middle level of generalization, we are trying to find out the interlinks or the overlapping between the subjects. I can give you one example. When we study the history of the marginalized people in ancient India with special emphasis on the Sudras or the women, then we always try to understand these facts in the light of the ancient religious scriptures or texts. So here we are trying to find out the interconnections between the position of Sudra and women and the ancient religious texts. I can give you one example. If you read Manu Sanghita, then you will be able to find out how women were treated at that time. This is just an example which could help you to know what is middle level generalization. The next point is wide generalizations or systemizing generalizations. These are made when historians reach out to the largest possible significant connections or threads that tie a society together. These historians try to study all the economic, political, social, cultural, and ecological linkages of a society in an entire era. So, when we are giving emphasis on macro history, not micro history, that means we are trying to know the history from a larger perspective or from a broader perspective. It's not like that we are trying to know the history of religions in India. Rather, we are trying to focusing on the heritage of India comprising not only religion but also the other components like the anthropology, the sociology, the economy, and also the psychology or the psychiatry, because all these are very much important to form the culture where religion is a part only. Then we can talk on meta history. Meta history is often unhistorical since it tries to impose a principle to organize history from outside history. That means when we are talking history from the perspectives of theories, when we are trying to apply the theories to know history, what Marx, Hegel, Weber, Max Muller stated, which we are applying to understand their significance, and that is called meta-history. I can give one example of Marx, that where he talked on class struggle, class exploitation, which many a times we apply to understand the essence of a particular civilization in the light of its economic significance or in the light of its economic history, and whether it is possible to bring scientific socialism or not, that can be also a part of meta-history, because we can do these experimentations not only with the help of what Marx stated, but also with the help of the other political thinkers before and after Marx, so that we will be able to understand the continuity of their thoughts and the feasibility of having scientific socialism. So, it can be termed as meta history, which is something what I can say metaphysical. So, the next point which I would like to highlight, that is inevitability of generalization. Whether generalization is inevitable? Yes, it is, because here we find like how the historians, they are playing with the words to construct history, and these words are the reflection of his subjective mind. He or she is expressing himself or herself with these words. Words are magical. Words are powerful. Words are inevitable. That's why generalization is also inevitable. The next point which I would like to highlight, that is objections to generalization. Yes, it's a very important thing. It's not always possible for us to think as per the established theories. We can think otherwise also. That can be an objection to generalization. Some people, they also think it's not possible to bring scientific socialism ever. It is a myth. Similarly, when we study the economic history of modern India, we read deindustrialization. According to some scholars, deindustrialization was also a myth. So here we are moving towards something which is not accepted or conceived. So we are moving either backwards or beyond our understanding. And we are having a confrontation with generalization, or I might say we are refuting generalization, because there is also a term which is known as out of the box. When you are thinking something out of the box, that means you are refuting generalization. We have Pride Parade now. Now the people from the LGBTQA community are very much aware of their rights and existence. It is against the generalized perception of society which we used to have 100 years back. This is something where we can question generalization. The next point which I would like to highlight, role of generalization. Generalization is important because it's helping the historians to form certain formulas or methods through which they are trying to decipher the historical facts. So these formulas or methods are important. If I give the example of class struggle and class exploitation, definitely when we try to understand globalization or capitalism or neo-capitalism, we always apply this theory of class struggle and class exploitation to understand deprivation as a whole. The next point or the next segment of my lecture is sources of generalization. Here we have the literature, because from the literature, I'm talking about the historical literature, I'm talking about the products of historiography through which we would be able to get an idea on various types of generalizations. Finally, which is the last part of my lecture, we might say that are there any formulas, quote unquote, to improve our generalizations? Here I should say that we can make theories, we can apply theories. All these are the reflection of both our subjective analysis and scientific rationalism. But that does not mean we have some established norms for research which we can always follow, and we are not in a position to deviate from them. Research is something which is very much unique and innovative. Here we cannot have any fixation or stagnation. So from that point of view, as generalization is a very much part of history and research methodology as well, there we cannot be as specific like the scientific theories, and as history deals with human minds, then generalizations have to be more versatile and dynamic. So here we cannot give those formulas which can make us more perfect with regard to generalizing the historical ideas. Rather, we need to have more critical thinking, which is subjective and cannot be termed from the context of scientific ideas or discoveries always, because history is human and science is technological, or I might say human minds are responsible behind the scientific discoveries. But it's not possible for the human minds to act like the robots or the computers. That's why, in my opinion, we cannot have certain ways through which we could improve our generalizations, but definitely we can refer the ideas by various thinkers to improvise our own thoughts towards generalization or research. Thank you.